Right now, buried somewhere beneath a landfill in South Wales, there may be a 2-inch piece of metal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It is not a gold bar. It is not a stolen treasure chest. It is an old laptop hard drive, and locked inside, it is the private key to 8,000 Bitcoin. The owner knows roughly where it is. He has spent years trying to recover it, but the government keeps saying no. This is the story of James Howells, a British IT engineer who accidentally threw away a fortune before most of the world understood what Bitcoin could become. At the time, the hard drive looked worthless, just another old computer part during an office clean-out. But years later, as Bitcoin exploded, that forgotten drive became one of the most famous lost wallets in crypto history, a fortune trapped between memory, math, law, and rotting garbage. The numbers are almost impossible to process. 8,000 Bitcoin. At certain market prices, that stash has been estimated at over $750 million. One mistake, one trash bag, one drive. And for more than a decade, Howells has tried to convince Newport City Council to let him dig. He offered money. He assembled engineers. He designed a recovery plan. He even went to court. But the harder he pushed, the more the landfill became a locked vault. But this story is not just about one man losing money. It is about the brutal rule of crypto ownership. If you lose the private key, the money is still visible, but untouchable. No bank can reset the password. No customer service department can verify your identity. No judge can magically restore access. In Bitcoin, possession is not about having a name on an account. Possession is about controlling the key. Without it, a fortune can become a museum exhibit you can never touch. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to 2008. The global financial system was shaking. Banks were collapsing. Trust in traditional finance was breaking down. In that chaos, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto released a white paper for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Most people ignored it, but a tiny group of technically curious people saw something different. Among them was James Howells, working from Newport, Wales. Howells believed fiat currency was broken. He was drawn to Bitcoin because it did not require a central bank, a commercial bank, or a government promise. It was code, scarcity, and verification. In early 2009, Bitcoin was not an asset class. It was not a Wall Street product. It was a strange experiment running on a handful of computers, and Howells was early enough to become one of the first people on Earth to run a Bitcoin node. On February 15, 2009, Howells fired up the Bitcoin software on a Dell XPS laptop. Back then, mining did not require warehouses, industrial cooling, or specialized ASIC machines. It could be done from a regular computer. Blocks rewarded 50 Bitcoin. The network was tiny. Difficulty was low. What later became a global financial battleground was still quiet enough for one noisy laptop in Wales to generate coins almost casually. For about 10 weeks, the laptop mined Bitcoin. The electricity cost was tiny, reportedly under £20. The accumulated stash became 8,000 Bitcoin. At the time, this did not feel like life-changing wealth. There was no mainstream market mania, no Super Bowl ads, no institutional allocation, no laser eyes, just experimental coins on a hard drive, inside a wallet file, controlled by private keys most ordinary people had never heard of. Then the first tiny decision changed everything. The laptop was loud. Its cooling fan reportedly roared so badly that Howells's partner complained it was keeping her awake. So, he stopped mining. That sounds almost funny now. A future fortune stopped because of a noisy laptop fan. But that is the strange cruelty of early technology stories. The moment feels trivial while you are living it, and only becomes historic after the price chart moves. In 2010, another accident hit. Howells spilled lemonade on the laptop. The machine was damaged, but because he was a systems engineer, he knew how to strip it for parts. He sold components online and kept the hard drive that contained the Bitcoin wallet. That drive was the whole kingdom, not the laptop screen, not the keyboard, not the casing. The hard drive held the wallet file, and the wallet file held the key to everything. For a while, the hard drive survived. It sat in a drawer with other computer parts, the kind of drawer every tech person has: cables, adapters, old drives, parts that might be useful one day. But buried inside that boring clutter was something extraordinary. One drive contained the Bitcoin wallet. Another similar-looking drive was blank. The future disaster was now waiting in the most ordinary place possible, a messy office drawer. In August 2013, during an office clean-out before a holiday, Howells made the mistake. He picked up what he believed was an old blank drive and tossed it into a black garbage bag. The problem was simple and catastrophic. He had thrown out the wrong one. His partner later took the bag to the local Docksway landfill. No alarms went off, no dramatic music played, just a bag of household waste joining thousands of others. 2 months later, the realization arrived. Howells read a BBC article about an early Bitcoin investor from Oslo who had used gains to buy a luxury apartment. Suddenly, the old wallet mattered. Suddenly, the coins were not a joke. He ran to the drawer, pulled out the remaining hard drive, and realized it was the blank one. The drive with the 8,000 Bitcoin was already under the landfill. The value began to move violently. First, the wallet was worth hundreds of thousands, then millions, then tens of millions. Every Bitcoin rally turned the landfill into a psychological torture chamber. Most investors hate watching an asset go down. Howells had the opposite nightmare. He watched the asset go up while knowing he could not access it. The richer the wallet became, the more painful the mistake became. Howells did not just sit there. He went to the landfill and started asking questions. Crucially, the site was not random chaos. Waste was weighed, logged, and placed into mapped sections. That meant the hard drive might not be buried somewhere inside an impossible mountain of 1.4 million tons. It could be in a more specific area. The target became Cell 2, a section estimated around 15,000 tons. That detail changed the story. Instead of searching an entire landfill, Howells could present a targeted recovery plan. It was still ugly, expensive, and risky, but it was no longer pure fantasy. He recruited people who understood landfill logistics. He spoke with recovery experts. He looked for funding. The mission slowly transformed from one man's regret into something that looked almost like a cyber heist, except the vault was made of garbage. The proposed operation was not just a man with a shovel. It involved hopper feeders, conveyor belts, AI vision systems trained to recognize drive shapes, mechanical sorting equipment, security systems, and specialist data recovery experts. Howells wanted to excavate the targeted waste, scan it, sort it, locate the drive, and then attempt forensic recovery. The plan sounded futuristic, but the basic objective was painfully simple: find one tiny rectangle inside thousands of tons of decay. The recovery plan reportedly involved millions in funding and serious technical talent, including specialists associated with extreme data recovery work. It also included a public pitch. Newport could share in the upside. Howells offered the council a percentage of the recovered fortune and even floated payments to residents. To him, it was a win-win. The city gets money. He gets his wallet back. The landfill gets searched professionally. But the council saw a different equation. Newport City Council repeatedly refused permission, and from their perspective, the refusal was not only stubbornness. Landfills are regulated environmental sites. Digging into one can create real hazards: methane gas, toxic leachate, disturbed waste, possible contamination, fire risk, compliance risk, public health risk. To Howells, Cell 2 looked like a buried vault. To the council, it looked like a liability field wrapped in environmental law. This is where the story becomes more than a crypto tragedy. It becomes a collision between private property and public regulation. The Bitcoin key may belong to Howells. The physical hard drive may contain his digital access. But once waste is deposited in a licensed landfill, local authorities can claim legal control over the material and the site. In other words, he may own the digital fortune, while having no practical right to reach the object that unlocks it. By late 2024, after years of refusal, Howells escalated. He sued Newport City Council for £495 million in damages. The lawsuit was not just about digging anymore. It was about compensation for the value he believed had been trapped by the council's refusal. But suing a council does not change the laws of physics, and it does not automatically erase environmental regulations. The case became a test of whether regret could overpower bureaucracy. In January 2025, the High Court struck out the claim, with Judge Kaiser K.C. ruling it had no realistic prospect of success. For Howells, it was a devastating legal wall. After years of plans, proposals, and negotiations, the court did not give him a path into the landfill. The buried hard drive remained buried. The wallet remained visible on the blockchain, and the fortune remained locked behind one of the most expensive mistakes ever made. Then came more pressure. His appeal was rejected in March 2025, leaving him with a legal fee bill reportedly around £117,000. When the council moved toward closing and capping the landfill, Howells tried another angle. He offered to buy the entire site. The reported offer was £25 million, but the council still would not open the door. Before any conversation, they wanted the court fees addressed. The vault was not just locked, it was being sealed. That is the cruelest part of this story. In normal finance, if money is stuck, lawyers can fight, banks can investigate, courts can order transfers, and institutions can reverse mistakes. Bitcoin does not work like that. The blockchain still recognizes the coins. The address still exists. The value can still be calculated. But without the private key, the system does not care who tells the best story. Code does not feel sympathy. By 2025, after more than a decade of trying to physically recover the drive, Howells shifted the story again. If he could not reach the metal, maybe he could build around the myth. The physical hard drive remained under Newport's control, but the digital claim, the public story, and the symbolic value of the lost wallet still belonged to him. That is when he turned toward tokenization. He created Ceiniog Coin, also called INI, named after the ancient Welsh penny. The idea was to mirror the 800 billion satoshis inside the buried 8,000 Bitcoin wallet with 800 billion tokens. In practical terms, it was an attempt to turn an inaccessible fortune into a tokenized narrative, a digital shadow of coins that may never move. Whether that becomes valuable or not is uncertain, but as a financial story, it is almost poetic. Howells summed up the divide with a simple idea. The council may control the physical metal, but he controls the digital property. That sentence captures the entire contradiction of modern crypto. A worthless-looking object can control hundreds of millions. A legal authority can control the land. A blockchain can record the fortune. But none of those systems perfectly overlap. The result is a treasure hunt where every participant controls one part of the map, and nobody controls enough to finish it. That is why the Docksway landfill has become more than a dump. It has become a physical symbol of lost crypto wealth. Somewhere below the waste may sit a drive whose coins are still visible on chain, still mathematically real, still economically meaningful, and still practically unreachable. It is a vault with no guard, a bank with no teller, and a treasure chest where the ocean is made of garbage. But the investor lesson is much bigger than James Howells. Across crypto history, millions of Bitcoin are believed to be lost forever because people misplaced keys, destroyed devices, forgot passwords, died without sharing access, or threw away storage media. Bitcoin's fixed supply is famous, but lost coins make the accessible supply even tighter. Every lost private key turns spendable money into digital archaeology. The coins remain part of the ledger, but they leave the market forever. That changes how we think about scarcity. Gold can be lost, but it can sometimes be found. Bank accounts can be frozen, but they can also be reopened. Passwords can sometimes be reset. Bitcoin is different. If the key is gone, the asset may be permanently trapped. That is the price of sovereignty. You remove the bank, but you also remove the safety net. You become your own vault and your own single point of failure. This is what makes the Howells story so addictive and terrifying. It combines everything people love and fear about crypto: early adoption, absurd upside, irreversible mistakes, government conflict, legal complexity, environmental risk, and the cold neutrality of code. It is funny until you imagine yourself doing it. It is tragic until you remember the coin started as almost worthless. It is absurd until the number on the ticker becomes too large to laugh at. There is also a psychological trap here. Once a mistake becomes worth millions, it becomes almost impossible to let go. Every bull market reopens the wound. Every headline creates another wave of hope. Every new technology makes recovery seem slightly more possible. AI scanners, better robotics, better data recovery, better funding. The dream keeps updating itself. And that may be the cruelest feature of all. The fortune is close enough to imagine, but far enough to remain unreachable. From the council's side, the calculation is different. A failed dig could create environmental damage, political backlash, regulatory problems, and financial liability. What if the drive is never found? What if the excavation releases hazards? What if the cost rises? What if residents object? For Howells, the upside is enormous and personal. For the council, the downside is public, legal, and messy. That mismatch explains why the door has stayed closed. And this is why the story has no clean villain. James made the mistake. The council controls the site. The law favors regulation. The blockchain refuses forgiveness. Investors cheer the hunt. Environmental officials fear the consequences. Each side can make a rational argument. That is what makes the situation so frustrating. The fortune is not lost in the sense that nobody knows about it. It is lost because every system involved blocks the next step. The old financial world was built on intermediaries. Banks, brokers, courts, custodians, passwords, signatures, recovery processes. Bitcoin removed much of that structure and replaced it with private keys. That is powerful because it gives control back to the individual, but power always has a cost. Howells learned the harshest version of that cost. Ultimate control also means ultimate responsibility. One lost drive can become $1 billion lesson. For every investor, the practical lesson is brutally simple. Back up your keys, use secure storage, avoid keeping your entire future on one device, make inheritance plans, test your recovery process before you need it. A fortune is only as safe as the weakest link in your custody system. In Howells' case, the weak link was not the Bitcoin protocol. It was a drawer, a clean out, and a black garbage bag. But there is a deeper financial lesson too. Most people obsess over finding the next big opportunity. Fewer people think deeply about protecting the opportunity once they have it. Making money is only one part of wealth. Keeping access to it is another. The Howells story is extreme, but the principle is universal. Wealth can vanish through leverage, taxes, lawsuits, inflation, panic selling, or, in the strangest possible case, household trash. That is what makes this the world's most expensive mistake. It was not a bad trade. It was not a failed company. It was not a market crash. It was an ordinary human error that became legendary only because the asset kept appreciating. A mistake made when Bitcoin was still obscure became catastrophic when Bitcoin became global. The same decision can look harmless in one decade and insane in the next. Time changed the price of the error. Maybe one day technology improves. Maybe laws change. Maybe the landfill is handled differently. Maybe the drive is found. Or maybe the 8,000 Bitcoin remain frozen forever. A permanent monument to the unforgiving logic of self-custody. That uncertainty is why the story refuses to die. It sits at the intersection of treasure hunt, legal battle, environmental dispute, and digital age cautionary tale. James Howells started as one of Bitcoin's earliest miners. He became the man who accidentally threw away a fortune. Then he became the man fighting a council, a landfill, environmental law, and time itself. The final lesson is cold, simple, and unforgettable. Not your keys, not your coins. But maybe the darker version is this. If you lose your keys, the coins may still exist. The world may still see them, and you may spend the rest of your life staring at wealth you can never spend. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoyed the story of the world's most expensive mistake, lost Bitcoin worth billions, then you'll love the story of the secretive billionaire behind Zara. Click the video on your screen now. I'll see you there.